So today I wanted to discuss something called intrusive thoughts. And intrusive thoughts are associated with OCD. And they're linked into OCD basically. The way I would describe intrusive thoughts would be to say that they are thoughts that come into your mind that you don't want to have. I think we all have intrusive thoughts, and an analogy that I'd probably just off the top of my head think of, if you're at a restaurant and you are collecting the drinks for your friends and family or whoever, you would pick them up and the first thing you're going to be thinking is don't drop them all over the floor, because it's going to be the worst thing that can happen. It's going to be embarrassing. So that is an intrusive thought, and it's coming into your head. You don't really want that thought coming in, because what else is tied together with that thought is the embarrassment of everybody looking at you in the restaurant, the disappointment you are to your friends or your family, also feeling personally a failure. So that's an example of an intrusive thought that most normal people would get. So that's very similar to that with OCD. You get intrusive thoughts, and they can be horrific, and they can be really dark, and they can be just the most upsetting things. And then in the typical way that OCD plays with a person's mind, it won't let you give up on those thoughts. It won't back off, it won't stay away. The more you don't want them, the more you are going to get them. And it's just absolutely awful. I would describe OCD as a real bully. It's just a nasty piece of work. It's an unkind, unpleasant, manipulative piece of work. And it wants to ruin and disrupt your day as much as it can. And it wants to control your time and the things that you are doing. A lot of people with OCD, their intrusive thoughts are things like, "Oh, I'll just drive my car up the pavement and run those people over. Oh, crikey, that could be terrible. What the consequences," and they'll get plagued with that when they're in their car driving. It's a little bit like the red button that the sticker says, "Do not press," or you're told by somebody, whatever you do, don't press that red button. Just don't press that button. Of course, you want to press it. You're completely consumed with wanting to press it. You want to know what it does, and you've been told not to, so therefore you want to do it even more. I sometimes have the odd bonfire out in the garden, burn a bit of wood, bits and pieces, and get a little bit of petrol, and sort of start it up with that. Off it goes. And I'm just there, and then all of a sudden the awful thought comes into my head. This poor little guy here, I'll do anything for, is, oh, wouldn't it be awful? Wouldn't it be terrible if Gordon, who's biting my finger right now, stop biting my finger, mate, just chill. Wouldn't it be terrible if Gordon was suddenly covered in petrol and, oh, that'd be awful. What about if he got too close to the fire? And what about if he suddenly burst into flames and was howling absolutely unrecognisably painful squeals and howl? He's biting my hand now. Just telling them how much I love you, and you're biting me. Telling them how much I'd rather die than see you suffer, and you're there biting me. So I just think that's just the most upsetting thing I could possibly ever imagine happening. Why would I even want to think that? And of course, as soon as you start thinking that, you start imagining it, and you start thinking, oh, that's awful. That's like, I couldn't imagine anything more upsetting. And it's an intrusive thought is breaking into my mind, and the more I try to repel it, the more it won't go away. And the more it won't go away, the more it bothers me. And the more it bothers me, the more upset, depressed, I become very, very worried about myself. I know that I would never do anything like that. No normal human being would do anything like that. But my mind is playing tricks with me, and it's because I'm assimilating these things. It's given me the anxieties and the fears and the absolutely tremendously awful feelings I would get as if I was doing those things. And it becomes very real. When I first had these thoughts, and I've had these thoughts all my life, they were when I was younger, they were just different thoughts. The more they happen, the more you don't want to actually do the thing you were doing. So therefore you become scared of, I don't want to have a bonfire because I don't want those thoughts. And that's when OCD, the bully, starts to control you because you're scared to go out and do things that you want to do. And it has to be put back in its place. There may not be a cure to OCD, and you may not be able to stop these intrusive thoughts, but there are some coping mechanisms that you can do that can help. And what I have done is I am doing a twitch with my neck now, which I'm not going to hide. I'm not going to edit because that wouldn't be honest. The coping mechanisms that I've developed are as follows. I then fight back, and I fight back against what is the cause of the problem. It's not me, it's the OCD. And I put OCD over there, and I realise that he or it is attacking me. And when it attacks me, it makes me feel really bad. The OCD is trying to cause me as much harm and much unpleasantness as possible. I don't know how else really to explain it, but my coping mechanism is that when it's going to attack me, I'm going to attack it back. Its goal is to make me miserable. Its goal is to make me feel sick, feel horrified at myself, feel worthless, think I'm not even worth living because I have such terrible thoughts. So therefore, I'm going to counteract that and I'm going to fight it head on. And that's what you should do with all bullies, basically. I then, when that happens, when I get those terrible thoughts start to come in, I stop what I'm doing. I find Gordon and I give him a hug. And this is going to sound just daft and silly. I'm just basically go and give him some love. I give him a hug, give him some biscuits, sit down with him, spend a little bit of time with this little chap. He's just such a loving creature, and I just tell him how much I love him. And that might seem soft, but what you're actually doing, and what I am doing in this moment, is I'm psychologically building a stronghold around to defend myself. So when that OCD thought comes at me, I'm going to give something back. You've then got something to counteract the intrusive thoughts. But if you keep doing it, it's amazing. It does actually happen. If you keep doing it, it will actually help. If you persist and keep counteracting them with positive, loving, unselfish thoughts, you start to build up a little bit of a storage system of positive, nice feelings, and that can start to work. It can help to diminish the bad thoughts that come in. Those positive thoughts outweigh the intrusive thoughts eventually. I think one of the things with OCD is it's not necessarily something you can cure. I've had it all of my life and I've never managed to cure it, but I've found mechanisms that have made my life more enjoyable and made some of the compulsions and the obsessions and the intrusive thoughts and the tics and the habits and the goodness knows what else more controllable. And if I was to put it back into that analogy of that red button, you mustn't touch that red button. So of course the feeling of pressing that red button is I've ruined everything, I've done what I shouldn't have done, I've let everybody down, I've dropped the drinks all over the floor. What this coping mechanism does is it puts a green button next to the red button. And quite simply, if you've pressed that red button, it then gives you the chance to press the green button, which then makes things better. So let's put it this way. I'm in the garden, have terrible thoughts about my poor little cat getting burnt or hurt. Okay, that's terrible. Right, press the green button. I go and give him some hugs. I physically and verbally and emotionally show him love. And I've pressed the green button, I've reset it. Now, that hasn't stopped the intrusive thought coming in, because it came in and it still made me feel terrible. But it gives me a positive. It gives me something that instead of feeling negative, I'm going to feel positive, because I'm going to go and spend some time and put that positive back in. But more importantly, if I skip forward to the next day, that red button's there, do not press it, pressure isn't quite there. So when I'm in the garden, think I'm going to have a bonfire. Oh, I hope I don't get those awful thoughts about Gordon on fire. Oh, I'm scared to have a bonfire. I don't have that pressure, because I'm thinking, what if those thoughts come in? I'm just going to give him some treats. I'm going to show him some love. Gordon's going to love it. I'm going to feel great. The pressure of being able to reset that red button is it's a deal breaker. So I think with OCD, one of the main things that causes the obsessions and the compulsions is the fact that you don't want to be doing them, you shouldn't do them, and you don't want to twitch in front of someone, you don't want to be twitching your eyes or blinking or bending your neck, and with the intrusive thoughts, you don't want those intrusive thoughts. That's the last thing you want. You don't want to have those thoughts, and thoughts are really powerful, especially if you're imaginative and have a creative mind. It can be really terrible. So I think by fighting it with something good is a positive step in the right direction. And I found psychologically it helps. Because instead of being fearful of those thoughts coming again, I now, when I'm having a bonfire, realise that I've got some ammunition. And even though a negative is going to come in, I'm going to be pushing a positive back out there. And it's going to be making me a better person. I'm going to be more loving, more caring. I'm treating my little cat that I love and spending a little bit of time with him. And those are really good things. Those are all fruits. They're the healthy, good ingredients of life, giving and loving and being nice. And, they say perfect love casts out all fear. And I found that getting angry about having intrusive thoughts trying to spoil my life makes me more bitter and more unpleasant inside my mind. But sometimes fighting them back with love, but yet being strong, not being a coward, but with love, I'm going in there going, this thought's coming this way, it's disgusting, it's horrible. I am going to go and fight it back with love. I'm going to do the opposite to what it's doing to me. And somehow it seems to work because it takes the pressure away. When I next go to do something, the intrusive thought isn't so bad. And I would like to talk a little bit more about these things and I'm learning about them myself. So there's a lot of people on YouTube who've got, degrees and lots of incredible knowledge and psychological expertise. And they know probably how to put these things better verbally than I do. And I need to start to become more. I need to get a better understanding across to people. But what I have got to offer is I've got all my life's worth of having these problems, and they sometimes take a long time to develop cures and remedies. I wouldn't say cures. They sometimes take a long time to develop coping mechanisms and systems and structures that can help you through, even if it is just, see it twitched me out there, even if it is, I'm not taking those out, I'm keeping them in. I've forgotten what I'm saying now. Anyway, that's me. I'm just going to log out, and thank you so much for taking the time, and thank you for some of the positive feedback and comments from the last messages, the videos I've put online, because it is emotionally draining, and I found that I was opening up about things I've never even talked about with anyone, even with my family and people, what have you. So anyway, over and out now. I'll speak to you in a bit. Thank you.